All right, Khan. Shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all honor, all praises, and all glory unto the Most High God Yahweh. And I do so in the name of his only begotten Son, Yahweh Shai, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. All right, it's your brother Washanya with the Church of WFI Little Rock, Watchman for Israel Little Rock, coming back with another lesson through the power and spirit of Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai, right? Real quick, before I get into it, man, I want to light this other incense up real fast, right? I want to light this instance up real fast. You know, don't get turned off by the title, right? I know it can seem so-called offensive, right? It's strictly educational, right? This is strictly for edification, right? We're gonna set this up right quick. Set this up right fast. But so as you can see by the title, it's called The Most High Hates Niggards, right? That's what it says, right? That's what we're going into. The Most High, God, he hates niggards, right? Now, before you get offended, before you get in your feelings, right? This word, niggard, is unrelated to the slur, right? The racist slur that so-called blacks have been called for over half a millennia, right? And I got it pulled up, right? And also, just so you know I'm pronunciating it right, I got it pulled up, right? So the word niggard means a stingy or ungenerous person, right? That's what the word means. It means a stingy or ungenerous person. This is via the Oxford Dictionary, and this is how it's pronounced.
Niggard.
I'm gonna do it again.
Niggard.
One more time.
Niggard.
Niggard. That is the pronunciation, right? Now let's go to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, right? It says, let's get their pronunciation. See if we can do it.
Niggard.
Niggard. That is how you pronunciate the word. That's what we're going to be going into today, right? The word niggard, again, it means a meanly covetous or a stingy person. It goes on and it elaborates, right? The words niggard and niggardly are etymologically unrelated to the highly offensive and inflammatory racial slur euphemistically referred to as the N-word, despite the word's visual and auditory resemblance to it, right? So despite how the word sounds, despite how the word looks and how it's spelled, it's unrelated to the racial slur known as the N-word, okay? The word niggard means to be stingy, greedy. When you break it down etymologically, it means to be tight-fisted. You don't want to let it go. You're greedy, okay? That's what it means to be a niggard. And that word is in the Bible. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing a lesson on it, right? So we're going to be going into the Bible. We're going to be going into the attributes and characteristics of a niggard and letting you know, hey, you don't want to be that person. You do not want to be this person, okay? Let's hop right into it through the Spirit. Let's go to the book of Sirach. We're going to get right into it. Let you know, I'm not making this up. And even if you were to take offense to it, the actual word, the N-word, N-I-G-E-R, right? Before they added the extra G, right? It's in the Bible, which it all means the same thing. The N-word actually means black, right? The N-word actually means black, is of Latin origin, right? That's where you get the Spanish word Negro, which means black, okay? But we're not going into that word today. We're not going into the N-word today. We're going into niggard, okay? This is the book of Sirach, chapter 14 and verse number 3. And it reads, riches are not comely for a niggard, and what should an envious man do with money, right? So the word comely means attractive, right? Let's get that word comely. Let's pull up the definition, right? I'm big on definitions because that's how you get understanding, right? Comely definition, right? So the word comely It means pleasant to look at, attractive, right? So it's not pleasant or attractive for a man that is greedy or a man that is stingy to have money, right? Why? Because they make it all about them. They make it to where um it's unseemly, right? All they do is boast with it. They brag about it, right? They'll go and show off all the things that they can acquire with it, right? Instead of actually doing something that's beneficial with it, right? Like helping the poor, helping your people, building communities, building schools, right? Things that are profitable. Instead, they're being niggards with it, man, right? They'll go and they'll buy $100,000 chain. As a matter of fact, there's a rapper, right, by the name of ASAP Ferg, right? In a popular song a few years ago, maybe more, right? He said his Hermes link can feed a village in Nigeria, right? Let me pull up that lyric real quick, right? Uh, and it's folly, man. It's foolishness. That's why it says riches are not comely for a niggard, right? This what the brother said. Let me pull it up real quick. So it was in the song Plain Jane, right? He said his Hermes link could feed a village in Liberia, right? So instead of him actually going to feed a village in Liberia, he copped him a Hermes link, man, right? A chain that's going to eventually, be corrupt. It's going to eventually rust, right? It's eventually going to be corruptible metals, right? But that's the point. You don't want to be somebody who's able to acquire all this wealth or money or resources and you're not doing anything profitable with it. You're being vain, right? You're being a fool. You're wasting your substance. You're not giving back, right? Because you got to understand the source of it, right? At the end of the day, the Most High is the source of whatever you've accumulated, whatever you've heaped up, whatever resources that you have, you got it from the Most High God. Let's get that right quick. In the same book, the book of Sirach, chapter 11, in verse number 14, right? As a matter of fact, we'll get verse 12. This whole thing is good through the Spirit, right? But for time's sake, I'm going to just get verse 12. It reads, "Again, there is another that is slow and hath need of help, wanting ability and full of poverty." So there's some brothers who, again, they might be a little slow. They might need a little help, a little bit of assistance, right? They're not a quick learner, right? So they might have to take their time, right? They might need a little bit of time to onboard, right? But what? It says, "Yet the eye of the Lord looked upon him for good and set him up from his low estate and lifted up his head from misery so that many saw it and marveled at him. Prosperity and adversity, life and death, poverty and riches come of the Lord," right? So that same brother who's a little bit slower, hey, the Most High at any given time can set that brother up in a high estate, can put that brother in a position of authority, right? He can become the next CEO or the next CFO, the next governor, man, the next senator. The Most High can do anything. That's what you see the Most High has done with these other nations, right? Setting up all these individuals who are literally just imbeciles, right? They're imbeciles. They don't belong in that position, and yet they're in it. Why? Because the Most High set them up to do so, right? Because everything comes from the Most High. Everything is of Him. And that's why we got to be humble and have the spirit of humility no matter what situation we are in, because it all comes from Him. Let me get this right quick in the book of Ecclesiastes. All right, before we move on, let's go to the book of Ecclesiastes, and I believe it is the 8th chapter. All right. Let's see. So like you bear with me. One moment. It's like it was the ninth chapter. This is the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 9. And I'm going to start at verse number 11, right? Ecclesiastes chapter 9 and verse 11. And it reads, I returned and saw under the sun that the race is not to the swift. What is the race? The race is this life. Every man, woman, and child that has been born upon this earth have entered into a race, right? And Solomon said, I returned and saw that under the sun, that the race is not to the strong, or not to the swift, rather, nor the battle to the strong, neither yet bread to the wise, nor yet riches to men of understanding, nor yet favor to men of skill. But time and chance happeneth to them all. Time and chance, man. That's what this whole thing is about. It's about the lot that the Most High has given you, the opportunity that the Most High has given you. Let's get the definition of a lot, right? Because that's what this life is about, right? So the word lot, let's get this. Let's get the archaic definition, right? So archaically, a lot means like a pebble or a straw used to decide something by chance, right? Casting lots. So it's literally like you rolling the dice. You don't know what you're going to get, right? You don't know if it's going to be a 1, a 7, a 3, right? That's how it is with your life. The Most High has given you a specific lot. You didn't know what your life or your lot is going to be, and you still don't. You don't know what's going to happen 10 minutes from now. You have an idea, but guess what? Only the Most High knows exactly how it's going to play out. And that's how it is with your life, right? So whenever it comes to things like having a bunch of money or having no money at all, you have to understand that both of those situations or scenarios come from the Most High God, right? So let's move on. Let's go to the book of Proverbs, chapter 11. All right. We're going to go to the book of Proverbs, chapter 11, and verse number 24. It reads, there is that scattereth, and yet increaseth, and there is that which withholdeth more than is meet, but it tendeth to poverty, right? So there's a man that scatters and he increases, right? But on the other hand, you have another man that is withholding more than he actually needs to, right? He has that spirit of just saving, penny pincher, right? Type behavior, you know? And what happens? It tended to poverty, right? It goes the same, just, like investing. You invest so that you can get a return upon your investment, right? So you might put a little bit of your money into the S&P 500. You might put a little bit of your money into a dividend stock. You might put a little bit of money into a penny stock, right? Or a little bit into your Roth, whatever it may be, right? Why? So that you can get a return on your investment. But then you have some who they're counting the pennies upon every single purchase, right? But they're doing that, they're stressing themselves out. They're not looking at the bigger picture, right? They're not giving alms. They're not helping out the poor, right? They're not investing anything. All they're doing is worried about how much money, they're very tedious. How much money's going out, right? They're so worried about how much money's going out. They're not thinking about the money that could be being brought back if they were being more of a contributor, right? Because that's what you want to be in life, is someone who's able to contribute to the cause, right? Contribute to people's well-beings, right? Am I saying you need to go out of your way and go broke trying to help somebody out? I'm not saying that necessarily. That's not what I'm saying at all. Am I saying you need to go broke trying to invest. But that's not what I'm saying at all. All I'm saying is you don't want to be greedy. You don't want to be selfish. You want to be a selfless individual. You want to be a giver, man. You want to be somebody that, and don't take this the wrong way either. You want to be somebody that is being used more so than using others, right? Yahweh Shai is a perfect example of that. How you had hordes of people thronging him about, tossing him every which type of way to get something from him, right? To get something from him. What was Yahweh Shai asking in return, right? He told the disciples, hey, go fetch me that coat, right? Go prepare somewhere to eat, right? But he just fed 5,000, right? With 2 loaves and a few fish. You understand? So it's not like he was asking for the world in return for all the many favors and many miracles that he did, right? He was somebody that was constantly being used. And very much still, even after his death, people still using Yahweh Shai's blood, right? To obtain grace, to obtain mercy, to obtain access to everlasting life, right? But let's read that one more time. It says, Proverbs 11:24, there is that scattereth and yet increaseth, and there is that withholdeth more than is meet, but it tendeth to poverty, right? So you don't want to be a money grabber. Like it says, one of the definitions of being a niggard is being tight-fisted, right? Withholding more than is meat, right? Stuffing the money under the mattress, right? Collecting it in the shoebox and just putting it up. So and this is not to be like a financial or, an economics class, right? Or financial literacy class, man. But just a fact. And so brothers and sisters can understand that investing, it's not just putting money in the stock market, right? It's not just putting money into a business or something that can give you monetary gain back, right? But that is a good teaching lesson for you to be able to apply that to helping others around you, right? And that's what the Bible tells us. We're going to get into that more so as we go throughout this lesson. But on a carnal level, if you put your money in the stock market, right, and you look at how much the stock market has grown just this year, right? I think the S&P 500, which tracks, the United States 500 largest companies, right? It's over 17%, right? Just this year. But you let that same money sit in the bank, you're gonna accrue 0.0007% on your money, which is nothing. That's not even 7 cents, right? So apply that same thing to you helping people, you helping your brothers, your sisters, your mothers, your fathers, right? Your children. You being a selfless person and you investing in them and their wellness and well-being, right? What is the Most High going to do to you? What is he going to give back to you, right? Because that's what this lesson is about, right? Let's get another precept in the same book, Proverbs chapter 21. Proverbs chapter 21 and verse number 26, right? Let's start at verse 25. It says, the desire of the slothful killeth him, for his hands refuse to labor. He coveteth greedily all the day long, but the righteous giveth and spareth not, right? So here's another lesson to add on to what we've already been talking about. Slothful people are people who are lazy, right? People who don't want to work. They don't want to get active, right? Their hands refuse to labor, right? They're not willing to put in X amount of hours to make sure, that they themselves are able to be provided for, right? Not even their family, but they themselves, right? Because, hey, as a man, you're going to have to work, right? But it says, he coveteth greedily all the day long. And slothful people are always mad at people who have success because, they want it. That's what it means to covet. They want what they have, right? But they don't want to put in the work in order to obtain what they have. But let me get a real quick precept before we continue. It's also important to understand this. This is what Yahushua said in the book of Luke, St. Luke, chapter 12, I believe. St. Luke chapter 12 and verse 15, it reads, "And he said unto them, Take heed and beware of covetousness, for a man's life consisteth not in the abundance of things which he possesseth." Right? Your life isn't about what you have carnally, how many cars you have, how big your house is, right? How many acres of land you have, how much money you got in your bank account. That's not what a man's life is, according to Yahushua. He said, a man's life consisteth not in the abundance of things which he possesses, right? So if you are coveting over what another man has, first of all, you sinning, right? And secondly, you just got to look at what you are doing in your life, right? Are you working enough to take care of yourself, to provide for yourself, right? So that you can be content with your labor, so that you can be content with your reward, man, right? Because the workman is worthy of his hire, right? The workman is worthy of his hire. You're going to get what you put out, man, right? Now, here in Babylon the Great, here in captivity, look, you going to get shortchanged. You're going to get underhanded, right? You're going to be taken advantage of, and it's straight up extortion. Yeah, we understand that. This lesson is more so about what you're contributing and doing on a spiritual level, right? Not carnally. Because you can be, working a so-called dead-end job, right? A temporary job in which, you got to do things to, quote unquote, make ends meet. But what are you doing for the Most High, right? How much work are you putting in for the ministry, right? For the body, right? Because again, the work is not about how often you clock in for Esau, right? How many hours you put in for your oppressor, right? How many raises and promotions and bumps in pay you got, man. That's not what it's about. It's about what are you doing for the Most High. See, the Most High, he will give certain individuals these carnal things because he knows what they're going to do with it. He knows that they're going to use it to forward the ministry, right? To keep pushing the truth, right? So don't be covetous when you see other brothers and other sisters having stuff that you may not have. The Most High gave it to them individuals for his own purposes, right? It's not for you to be covetous over, man, right? Let's continue. Let's keep going. Let's go to the book of 2 Corinthians, right? We're going to go to the book of 2 Corinthians, chapter 9. Right. Now, this is the book of 2 Corinthians, chapter 9 and verse number 6, right? 2 Corinthians chapter 9 and verse number 6, and it reads, "But this I say," Salakia. This is the book of 2 Corinthians chapter 9 and verse 6, it reads, "But this I say, he which soweth sparingly shall reap also sparingly, and he which soweth bountifully shall reap also bountifully," right? So Paul is letting you know, look, a man is going to get according to the work of his hands, right? If you sowing sparingly, meaning you out in the field, right? You sowing the ground, right? You getting ready to plant the seeds. If you do that sparingly, you're going to reap sparingly. If you sow 20 seeds, right? And you're expecting a bountiful harvest, you're fooling yourself, right? You're kidding yourself, man. Right? Look, I don't gotta be a genius to know that, look, if you are only sowing 20 seeds a day, man, you're kidding yourself, right? But he said this, "And he which soweth bountifully shall reap also bountifully," right? So let's just analyze ourselves, our lives, and our time usage. What are we doing with the time? Because really, if you want to get down to it, the greatest asset is your time. The greatest asset that you will ever obtain in this life is your time, right? It's the greatest asset that you can use, and it's also the greatest asset that you can waste, right? If you're using your time and you're being productive, you will steadily see an increase in your life. If you're being productive, if you know that things that you're doing are conducive and producing good things in your life is going to start changing for the better. But if you're wasting the most valuable asset that the Most High has given you, more valuable than any $100 bills, if you're wasting that asset all the time, whether it be binge watching shows, whether it be playing the video games, right? Whether it be on, hey, you name it, right? Hey, you sinning behind the, whatever it is. If you're wasting that, then I mean, your life is going to reflect that, right? Let's keep on going though. This is the book of 2 Corinthians chapter 9 and 7. It says, every man according as he purposeth in his heart, so let him give. So whatever you think is good, whatever you think is, right for you to help an individual out with, give that, right? But what? It says, so let him give, not grudgingly or of necessity, for God loveth a cheerful giver. So if you are compelled to give somebody something, don't let it be of a necessity as if you feel like you have to do it. Or don't let it be of a grudge. You secretly, are doing it, but in malice, right? Man, and you're mad about it. You're mad about helping, right? God loves a cheerful giver. You want to help that person, right? You want to see that person increase. You want to see that person get their life together, get their act together, man, right? Because what we got to do more of is this right quick. Let me get this precept right fast. Right? I think it's in the book of Matthew 22. Right? Let me see. Yep. Matthew 22 and verse number 38. We're going to start right here. Matthew chapter 22. I'm going to start at 37 and it reads. I'm going to start at 36, right? Matthew chapter 22 and verse 36 and it reads, Master, which is the great commandment in the law? Yahushua said unto him, Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart and with all thy soul and with all thy mind. This is the first and great commandment. So a most important commandment, according to Yahushua, is loving the Most High with all your heart, soul, and mind, right? Verse 39, and the second is like unto it. So the second one is just as important as loving the Most High God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind. This is how important the second commandment that Yahushua is about to say is. And the second is like unto it, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets. So if you love your neighbor as yourself, you're going to keep the law, right? You're going to keep the prophets. But we have to do more of that. We have to start loving our neighbor as ourselves, as the scripture says, right? If you are down bad and you hit rock bottom, right? And maybe a homeboy, right? It may be a brother, it might be a sister, right? Your mother, your father, your child, and you're rock bottom, you're down bad, and you want assistance, you need help, right? Wouldn't you want to ask somebody for some help? Of course you would, right? Now, when you ask somebody for some help, like I said, let's take all those different people that I just said, your homeboy, your brother, your sister, your father, your children, mother, all right? Those are supposed to be, that's your like immediate family, right? If that's your immediate family, you would want them to help you out willingly, right? because of what you contributed to their lives in their walk, right? But so often we see, family members get down on hard times, and nobody wants to have to do anything with them, right? They cast them off, right? They say to hell with them, right? They say, man, I hope he gets it figured out, right? But you're not there for them. You're not trying to help them out, right? And that's what it means to love your neighbor as you love yourself, putting yourself in your neighbor's shoes, right? Trying to understand what they're going through, right? Let me get a quick precept in the book of Sirach. I believe it's Sirach 9. Let's go to the book of Sirach, chapter 9. Let's see. So this is the book of Sirach, chapter 9 and verse 14. And it reads, as near as thou canst, guess at thy neighbor and consult with the wise. That's wisdom. He said, as near as you can, as best as you can, guess at your neighbor. See how your neighbor's doing. See how your brother's doing. Check on them, man. Make sure they're doing okay. And if they're not doing okay, see how you can help, right? It doesn't have to always be about money, right? It might be about knowledge. It might be about resources. It might be about just, giving them comfort in the scriptures, right? But a niggard is only thinking about themselves, right? A niggard is stingy with their resources, with their money, with their knowledge and wisdom. They don't care about you, right? Don't be that person, right? Don't be that individual, right? Let's see. Let's go to the book of Luke. Let's go back to St. Luke. All right. We're going to go to the book of St. Luke, chapter 6. All right. Look, man, when you really read the Bible, and you apply the Bible, there is no excuses, right? The community, the nation shouldn't be in the way that it is, right? Because not only did Yahweh say that the second commandment is like unto the first, which is loving your neighbor as you love yourself, right? But he also said, let's get this before we get Luke 6. Let's go to Matthew 5, all right? Because we got to do better. We got to be better, all right? It's Matthew 5 in verse number 43, right? Matter of fact, this whole thing is good, man. Let's see. We're going to start at verse 40, man. Matter of fact, we'll start at 41. It's the book of Matthew, chapter 5 and verse number 41. It reads, and whosoever shall compel thee to go a mile, go with him twain. Did it say your homeboy, your blood brother, right? Did it say what your ride or die? Or did he say whosoever? And whosoever shall compel thee to go a mile, go with him twain, right? If somebody needs your help, they need your assistance, hey, go above and beyond with that, right? That's essentially what Yahweh is saying. It says, verse 42, a lot of people gonna hate this. Give to him that asketh thee, and from him that would borrow of thee, turn not thou away. Hey, give to him that asketh thee, and from him that would borrow of thee, turn not thou away. Man, if somebody asks you, and also wisdom and practical knowledge also is very important. Of course, especially in the cities, you're going to run across a bunch of homeless, right? A bunch of individuals who have fallen to drug use, alcoholism, right? And they're not going to use $5 to get them a drink and a snack, right? They're not going to use a $20 bill to get them a meal, right? You have to use wisdom. You have to use discernment, right? But if they did ask you for something and you see them in a lower state, you see them, for lack of better terms, messed up, right? Then they ask you for whatever the case may be. Of course, you want to ask them, look, okay, what's your situation? Oh, you're homeless. Well, I can't give you shelter right now. Just depends on your situation. I'm just giving a hypothetical. Right? I might not be able to give you shelter right now, but I can get you a drink. I can get you some food. You know, and that's the best you can do, right? Because you don't know that individual necessarily, and you don't know what they're gonna do with the money if you were to give it to them. You want to use practical knowledge, right? You don't want to just, hey, a homeless man come up and say, man, give me $100, and you just give him $100, and the next thing you know, he's around the corner, at the trap house. You know the story, man, right? But let's keep going. Verse 43, you have heard that it hath been said, thou shalt love thy neighbor and hate thine enemy. But I say unto you, love your enemies, bless them that curse you, and do good to them that hate you, and pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you. Are we praying for one another whenever we're being persecuted by our brothers, right? Are we blessing them that curse us, right? And doing good to them? This is what we got to start doing. We have to get back to this. We have to get back to loving our neighbor as we love ourselves, helping each other out in any way that we can. That's really the point and the purpose. Helping each other out in any way that we can, not being niggers, not being stingy, not being greedy, not being selfish, but looking out for one another's more than ourselves. Right, quick, before I get that Luke 6, let's get that real fast. Right? Let me get that right fast. Let me see if I can find it right fast. One second, bear with me. All right. This book of Philippians, chapter 2 and verse number 3. It reads, Philippians 2 and 3. Let nothing be done through strife or vainglory, but in lowliness of mind, let each esteem other better than themselves. Look not every man on his own things, but every man also on the things of others. Let this mind be in you, which was also in Hamashiach Yahushai, right? So let's, really put others before us, right? Because that's what it's about, right? Because everything in this world is vain, right? How much riches you got is vain. Really, it could all be a test to see what you're going to do with all that money, all that wealth that you've accumulated for Esau, right? Because at the end of the day, all the money you get from Esau is going right back to him via taxes, man, right? They're going to get it all back. So why not help your brother out with it, right? Why not help out your sister, your mother with it? Hey, the commandment says, honor thy parents, man, thy father and thy mother, right? In the book of Sirach. I got to get this, man. I'm going to get that Luke 6. I'm going to get it. But this thing is not too deep, and yet our people so far away from it, And it's so powerful, and it's so mighty because it shows the fruits of the Spirit. It shows charity. It shows love, right? It shows everything in which Yahweh showed us, man. So let me get this right fast. Let's go to the book of Sirach. Let me see. Sirach, I believe it's the 9th chapter. Again, maybe. I'm going to find it real quick. 1 second. Hold on. Bear with me again. So lucky. Sirach 7 and 28. Yep. This book of Sirach, chapter 7 and verse 27, right? It reads, honor thy father with thy whole heart, and forget not the sorrows of thy mother. Remember that thou wast born, Slakia. Remember that thou wast begotten of them, and how canst thou recompense them for the things that they have done for thee, right? How can you pay back your father and your mother for what they've done to you? Let's say your father's not in your life, right? He still brought you into this world, though, right? You still came of him, right? Every person on this planet, or so-called planet, every person on this earth has come from a man, right? Your so-called father, right? And was born, brought into this world through the mother. So just that alone is invaluable, right? Just that alone cannot be repaid. So you have to honor your father and your mother all the days of their life, man, right? All the days of their life. And if you applied what Yahushua said, forgive thy neighbor 70 times 7, let's say your father ain't been in your life all your life, 20, 30, 40 plus years, and all of a sudden he come around and he asking for something. Guess what? That's your pops, man. It's your mom's. You got to do what the Bible tell you to do if you believe in it, right? Ain't no holding grudges towards the parents, man. That's off, right? It's off. You know, we got to get back to loving our neighbors as we love ourselves, blessing those that curse us and persecute us, and praying for them that, that hate us, man. So let's keep going. Let's go back to that Luke 6. Right? It's the book of St. Luke, chapter 6. We're going to start at 35. It reads, this whole thing is fire. Let's start at verse number 30. Because, Luke 6 is just a reiteration of Matthew 5. Right? Yeah, we're going to start at verse number 30. Right? Luke chapter 6 and verse 30, it says, give to every man that asketh of thee, and of him that taketh away thy goods, ask them not again. I'm going to read that again. He said, and of him that taketh away thy goods, ask them not again. If a man rob you, and, they're not trying to give it back, he's saying, don't worry about it. Let the Most High take care of it. Right? Now, again, let's be practical. If a man takes off with your wallet and you got all your debit cards in there, your credit cards in there, you got a fistful of cash in there, your social security up in there, your driver's license, and he jacked you, report it to the authorities, right? Let's not be simple, right? But again, let's keep everything within its context, right? It says, verse 31, and as you would that men should do to you, do ye also likewise to them, right? And that's the point, right? Because obviously you wouldn't want somebody jacking you, right? You wouldn't want somebody taking your wallet. So you're not going to do that to them. And if somebody did that to you, then of course you're going to take the proper steps necessary, obviously not rendering evil for evil, not, taking it upon yourselves to give out the judgment, but letting the Most High take care of it. You are doing the right thing and reporting it to the proper authorities in that situation, right? But the point Yahweh was making is do unto men as you would want done unto you, right? Let's put ourselves in each other's shoes in these last days, right? Reading on. For if you love them which love you, what think have ye? For sinners also love those that love them. And if you do good to them which do good to you, what think have ye? For sinners also do even the same, right? And if ye lend to them of whom ye hope to receive, what thank have ye? For sinners also lend to sinners to receive as much again. So Yahushua is essentially talking about you giving and expecting the back, because that's your homie and he gonna get you back. But what about whenever you lend to somebody who you really not on good terms with, right? You ain't seen in some months or some years, right? I mean, and you hope to receive, right? It says, uh, what thank have ye, right? So what do you hope to receive by that, right? Because we should be wanting to receive our reward not from somebody giving you back 10% on whatever it is that you lent them, right? But our reward should be from the Most High and what He sees fit to give us for our blessings, right? For what we've done to others, what we've helped out with others, Let's keep reading. Verse 35. But love ye your enemies and do good and lend. I'm gonna read that again, man. This is what Yahushua said. He said, but love ye your enemies and do good and lend, hoping for nothing again. And your reward shall be great, and ye shall be the children of the highest, for he is kind unto the unthankful and to the evil. So give, man. Share. Give alms. Help out, right? Lend, man. Don't be selfish. Don't be a niggard, right? Be a selfless, reputable, respectable example of the believers, right? It goes on to read, be thankful and merciful as your Father also is merciful, right? We got to be more merciful too. Stop throwing out condemnations upon people who don't know the truth. Because guess what? At one point or another, you didn't know the truth, right? You were the so-called 2/3, man. So why would you come out and you're automatically proclaiming that such and such is 2/3 because of something that you've seen that they're doing, that they may have done on social media? It's not your position to throw out condemnation. It's your position to warn the people of the condemnation, right? Let's read on. It says, verse 37, judge not, and ye shall not be judged. Condemn not, and ye shall not be condemned. Forgive, and you shall be forgiven. It says, verse 38, give, and it shall be given unto you, good measure, pressed down and shaken together and running over, shall men give into your bosom. For with the same measure that you meet withal, it shall be measured unto you again. Right? And that is the point. Hey, man, the Most High is going to reward you with overflowing blessings as He sees that you're a cheerful and willing giver, man. Right? Someone who loves to help out. They don't do it of necessity, but they do it willfully. They do it because they love to see people, better off. Right? They hate to see people struggling. Right? They hate to see people going through it. So whatever sense of relief that you can give them, that's what you want to do. That's what somebody who's walking in the word of Yahushua is doing, man. Right? Because they know and they understand that it's all going to be given back. And some. It's all coming right back. And more. The Most High is going to bless you as He sees you are looking out for others, man. That's what Yahushua just said. He said, give, and it shall be given unto you. Good measure, pressed down and shaken together and running over, man. That oil is just flowing. All right. And it's not going to stop. It says, shall men give into your bosom. So you're going to just start, man, like, where's all this coming from? It's coming from the Most High because He sees your good works. All right. Let's keep going. Let's go to Proverbs. Proverbs chapter 19 and verse number 17. Right. It's the book of Proverbs, chapter 19 and verse number 17, and it reads, he that hath pity upon the poor lendeth unto the Most High, and and that which he hath given will He pay him again. See that? The Most High, hey, you helping out is like you lending unto the poor. And whatever you've given, what did he just say? He will pay him again. So if you feel like, look, like I said this earlier in the video, am I saying go broke trying to help somebody out? I'm not necessarily saying that, but I am saying if you give and you helping somebody out, you lending to the Lord. You really lending to the Most High, and He gonna pay you again. And Yahushua said, not only is He gonna pay you again, but He gonna pay you, and it's gonna be in abundance, shaken down or shaken up, pressed down and runneth over, man. Right? So, look, go broke, man, helping a brother out, right? Because you're gonna get it again, right? You will get it again. That's thus saith the Lord, right? There's nothing wrong with that, because it's all vanity, it's all carnality, right? But in that moment, when that brother or sister needed it more than you, right? This is helpful, man. Right? It's a help, right? So remember that. Let me get a quick precept though. And you, being in the spirit and having that faith, having that trust, having the belief in the Most High God and His promises, when you do give, and you might put yourself in, a little financial pinch, or, you might take a loss or whatever the case may be, knowing you're gonna get it back. That's a part of it, man. Right? And this is what Paul said. This is the book of Philippians, chapter 4, in verse number, let's see, 11. This is the book of Philippians, chapter 4, verse 11. It says, not that I speak in respect of want, for I have learned in whatsoever state I am therewith to be content. He said, look, I have learned to be content no matter what situation I'm going through, no matter what my circumstances are. I'm going to be content. Why? Because he trusted in the Most High. He believes in Yahushua. Right? Reading on. It says verse 12. I know both how to be abased, and I know how to abound. Everywhere and in all things I am instructed both to be full and to be hungry, both to abound and to suffer need. So look, he said everywhere in all things, I'm instructed to be able to do these things, right? He's saying I would not be a good apostle if I wasn't able to live by any means, right? We always say by any means possible. Well, if you take that literally, if it's by any means possible, you're accepting and embracing the reality that you might have to go through any means to get whatever it is that you want, right? And in our case, we're wanting the kingdom of the Most High God, right? So by any means, it is possible with what? Verse 13, I can do all things through Mashiach, which strengthens me, right? Knowing the promises, knowing the salvation that is coming via our Lord, Yahushua the righteous, man. Right? No matter what your situation is, understanding that alone is going to get you through it, man. Period. So it shouldn't be a big deal to help someone out with the carnal things of this world. Right? Let's go ahead and get that precept. Let's go to the book of, let me see. It might be in John or it might be in James. 1 second. Yeah, 1 John chapter 3. I'm already here. It's the book of 1 John chapter 3. In verse number 16. 1 John 3 and 16, it reads, hereby perceive we the love of God, because he laid down his life for us. But you won't even lay down a dub for your brother who need a ride to work. But you won't even, you won't even give your sister $8 to get an Uber, right? You won't help your moms out and she need to get her medication, right? Those are just examples, man, right? But Yahushua laid down his life. He gave his life up for us, right? But you can't sacrifice a little bit of what you have or a little bit of what you can provide, whether it be your time, right? Some time, some energy, a little bit of labor, some money, man, right? We've already discussed this, right? It says, hereby perceive we the love of God. This is the love of God because he laid down his life for us. Because Yahweh Shai died for us, we know the Most High God loves us dearly, man. He loves us so much that when we needed it, he gave his son for us. His son, man, right? It says, he laid down his life for us, and we ought to lay down our lives for the brethren. But whoso hath this world's good, and seeth his brother have need, and shutteth up his bowels of compassion from him, how dwelleth the love of God in him? So if you have of this world's goods, you have the things of the world that's able to nourish and to sustain and to provide and prolong, put people on, so to speak, right? If you have this world's goods and your brother has need, and you shut up the bowels of compassion, you shut up the willful act, right? The act of kindness to help that individual out. You shut it up. How dwelleth the love of God in you, man? It's not in you, man, right? Because your actions, man, your fruits showing. Your fruits are showing, right? Let's get this. Let's go to Acts 20. It's the book of Acts, chapter 20, and verse number 35. And it reads, I have showed you all things, how that so laboring you ought to support the weak. You're supposed to be laboring, accumulating, money to provide for yourself, to provide for your family, but also to support the weak, right? Reading on. It says, and to remember the words of the Lord Yahweh Shai, how he said, it is more blessed to give than to receive. Yahweh Shai said it's more blessed to give, to help, than to receive. So that's not my opinion. That's what Yahweh Shai said, right? So just keep that in mind, man. Let's let the spirit of greed, covetousness, stinginess, let's let that go, man. That has no part in the Most High. That has no part in the Most High when you see what the Most High did for us, laying down the life of his only begotten Son, in whom he was well pleased. This is the book of Tobit, chapter 4 and verse number 7. Let's start at 6. It reads, for if thou deal truly, thy doing shall prosperously succeed to thee and to all them that live justly. So if you are dealing truly, man, you're going to prosper regardless. But you got to understand that some people who are without, and when I mean without, I'm talking about outside the truth, without the knowledge and the understanding of the Most High, they don't know the way of truth. They don't know the ways of prosperity, right? Because you get that through the keeping of the commandments. That's John chapter 1. That's Joshua chapter 1, 8 through 9, right? They don't know that. And did Yahweh Shai hold those that didn't know accountable? Or he said, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do, right? Let's read on Tobit chapter 4, verse 7. Give alms of thy substance, and when thou givest alms, let not thine eye be envious, neither turn thy face from any poor, and the face of God shall not be turned away from thee. Don't turn your face away from the poor of your people, man. Or the Most High said, he's going to turn his face from you, man. All right, let's keep going. It says, if thou hast abundance, give alms accordingly. If thou have but a little, be not afraid to give according to that little. Right, exercise that discernment. You don't want to just, give your life savings up, right? You got to use discernment. Everything has to be done in weight and in measure and in the spirit of wisdom, right? Just keep that in mind. Let it be done in the spirit of discernment. Let's keep going. It says, for thou layest up a good treasure for thyself against the day of necessity, because you never know when hard times will fall upon you, right? Rod Wave said, Rod Wave, an artist, a singer, right? He said, hey, the drought is always coming, right? The drought is always coming. What's that mean? Look, it's gonna be days where it's raining, abundance is coming in, you having it. Next thing you know, it's a drought. What happens when a drought? Hey, the crops don't grow, you don't get that increase. You was expecting a plentiful harvest and now it's a famine, right? Well, guess what? The drought, it can happen to you at any time, right? Because again, riches and poverty, they both come from the same place, from the same source. That's the Most High. So stay humble and give alms accordingly. Help out, because you'll never know whenever you're going to need it, Let's keep going. Verse 10, because that alms do deliver from death and suffer not to come into darkness. For alms is a good gift unto all that give it in the sight of the Most High, right? So yeah, alms, it very well could deliver from death, as far as you'll be on the verge of death and you need somebody to assist you, right? It's not saying you can buy your way into the kingdom of heaven. That's not so. That's not what it's talking about. But you giving alms and you're gonna get that requited back to you, right? And it can potentially save you from death if you're in a dire situation, right? In hard straits, and you need assistance because you've been giving alms, because you've been supportive and helping out. Hey, you'll be amazed. It's going to come back to you right when you need it, man. Right when you need it. But I'm going to get a few more and then I'm going to close out through the spirit. All right, let's go to Sirach. Chapter 12. And verse number 3. All right, this is the book of Sirach, chapter 12 and verse number 3. I'm going to start at 2. It says, do good to the godly man, and thou shalt find a recompense. And if not from him, yet from the Most High. There can no good come to him that is always occupied in evil, nor to him that giveth no alms. Right? So, hey, if you're not giving no alms, don't expect no good to come to you, man. Right? You can be so-called keeping the commandments, right? All that you want, but if you're not ever helping anybody out because for some reason it's in your spirit not to help out, don't expect nothing good to happen from you, man. It's happened to you, right? Let's get the book of 2 Corinthians chapter 8. This book of 2 Corinthians chapter 8 and verse number 10, and it reads, and herein I give my advice, for this is expedient for you, who have begun before, not only to do, but also to be forward a year ago. Now therefore perform the doing of it, that is, there was readiness to will, so there may be a performance also out of that which ye have. So Paul, he's giving this advice. He's saying, look, you need to first have the readiness to will, and then the performance out of it. So have a mind, right? A good mind, ready to give to your brothers in need, right? Ready to help out, ready to do whatever you need to do whenever you're called upon, and be ready to perform it, right? Because the performance of it is everything, the execution. You can think upon it all day, you can talk about it all night, but if you're not doing nothing, then it's nothing, right? That's why they have the saying, actions are going to speak louder than your words, right? Let's keep reading. Verse 12. For if there be first a willing mind, it is accepted according to that man hath, and not according to that he hath not. For I mean not that the other men be eased and ye be burdened, but by an equality that now at this time your abundance may be a supply for their wants, for their lack, right? That their abundance also may be a supply for your wants, that there may be equality, right? As it is written, he that hath gathered much had nothing over, and he that had nothing little had, or it's like, and he that hath gathered little had no lack, right? So Paul, he's telling the church of Corinthians, look, it needs to be like, if you got it, you need to help out those who don't really got it. And whenever they got it, they need to help out you who don't really got it. That's how it should be in the church. That's how he wants it, man. That he wants equality amongst the church, amongst the believers, right? To where, there's no lack, there's nothing over, right? It's all equality. It's all equal love. It's all shared love in the church, man. We all family. If I got it, you got it. That is the spirit that we really need to be moving in, man. That's how these other nations move, right? That's how Amalek move, right? The fake Jews, man, that's how they move, bro. If I got it, you got it. We got to get back to that and really apply that. Let's get Acts 4:31. Let's show you how our ancestors, our forefathers, they really did that. This is the book of Acts, chapter 4, and verse number 32, right? I'm sorry, 31. Acts 4:31, it says, and when they had prayed, the place was shaken where they were assembled together, and they were all filled with the Holy Spirit, and they spake with the word, Salakia, and they spake the word of the Most High with boldness. See that? So the believers, you see it, all gathered together. They assembled together, and they're filled with the Holy Spirit. That's how we supposed to be as a nation, the children of Israel, together, filled with the Holy Spirit, right? Speaking the word of the Most High with boldness, man. The whole world is against us, and it's too late in the game to be fighting amongst one another, right? Let's keep going. It says, and the multitude of them that believed were of one heart. See that? And of one soul. See that? Neither said any of them that aught of the things which he possessed was his own, but they had all things common, man. See that? They weren't selfish. They were like, look, hey, you see that chariot? That's our chariot, right? That's how they was moving, right? That's how we got to be moving as the nation, not the camp, right? Not, oh, it's WFI, and it's nobody else. We're not affiliated with them other guys. That's not how it's supposed to be. It said what? They had all things common. We are the same people, right? We got the same forefathers. You understand? And we have the same promises. And we're too busy bickering about the things that don't matter when the first commandment, the first and greatest commandment rather, is to love the Lord thy God with all our heart, soul, and mind. And the second is like unto it, which is loving our neighbor as we love ourselves. Being a niggard is much more than just not giving money to somebody. It's not caring enough about that person to show them love. That's ultimately what it comes down to, right? Because we should care about everybody equally, no matter the status, no matter the camp, right? This thing is about loving one another as we love the Most High, right? Let's keep going. It says, verse 33, and with great power gave the apostles witness of the resurrection of the Lord Yahushua, and great grace was upon them all. Neither was there any among them that lacked. For as many as were possessors of lands or houses sold them, and brought the prices of the things that were sold and laid them down at the apostles' feet. And distribution was made unto every man according as he had need. Wow. Imagine you selling your house and giving all the money to the ministry. Selling your land, the land, whether it be 5 acres or 500, man, you sold your land, you brought the money and gave it to the apostles so that they can distribute it to every man that had need. Because there's brothers and sisters that have need in this thing, man. Brothers and sisters that are going through things, right? Real trials, real tribulations, real poverty, real strickenness, man. Our people are stricken, and we need help. We need each other. That's why the Most High has put certain people in certain positions to help, right? This is what it's about. A nation helping. Because again, you weren't given that increase by your boss, by your oppressor, right? By that loan office, by the scholarship, right? The collegiate institution that you went to, man. You were given it by the Most High, right? And the Most High want to see what you're going to do with it. All right, let's get Matthew 24:32. And then after this one, I'm going to get one more, I believe. All right, Matthew chapter 24 and verse number 32. All right. Let's see. Matthew 25. Matthew chapter 25 and verse 32, and it reads, "And before him shall be gathered all nations, and he shall separate them one from another, as a shepherd divideth his sheep from the goats." All right, this is talking about the day of judgment. The Lord is going to separate the wicked from his elect, right? It says, "And he shall set the sheep on his right hand," that's the elect, "but the goats on the left," that's the wicked. "Then shall the king say unto them on his right hand, Come, ye blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungered, and you gave me meat. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you took me in. Naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came unto me. Then shall the righteous answer, saying, Lord, when saw we a hungered, and fed thee, or thirsty, and gave thee drink? When saw we thee a stranger, and took thee in, or naked, and clothed thee? Or when saw we thee sick, or in prison, and came unto thee? So Yahushua is saying, look, you righteous. When I was hungry, you fed me. When I was sick, you visited me. When I was in prison, you came to me, right? And the righteous are like, what are you talking about? When did we do that to you? This is what Yahushua said. And the king shall answer and say unto them, Verily I say unto you, inasmuch as you have done it unto one of the least of these my brethren, you have done it unto me. You see that? So if you do any of those acts of kindness to your brothers, it's like you doing it to the Lord himself, right? Then shall he say, then shall he also say unto them on the left hand, Depart from me, you cursed, into everlasting fire, prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungered, and you gave me no meat. I was thirsty, and you gave me no drink. I was a stranger, and you took me not in. Naked, and you clothed me not. Sick, and in prison, and you visited me not. Then shall they also answer and say, Lord, when saw we thee an hungered, or athirst, or a stranger, or naked, or sick, or in prison, and did not minister unto thee? Right? Then shall he answer them, saying, Verily I say unto you, inasmuch as you did it not to one of the least of these, you did it not unto me. So there's a judgment for you not helping your brothers out when you know they need help. Your sisters out when you know they need help, right? There's a consequence and there's a repercussion. And these shall go away into everlasting punishment, but the righteous into eternal life. And hey, man, I want to enter into eternal life. So I'm going to help out, man, where I can. That's what we all got to do, where we can, right? And, again, do it according to your substance, right? Use wisdom, use discernment, use discretion, right? Use all of those things, but help out where you can, right? Do that so that you can have eternal life. Let me get one more scripture, right? One second. In Jeremiah. Come on. Let's go to Jeremiah 9. Jeremiah chapter 9 and verse number 13. All right. Jeremiah chapter 9 and verse number 23, rather, Salakia. Jeremiah chapter 9 and verse 23. Thus saith Yahweh, let not the wise man glory in his wisdom, neither let the mighty man glory in his might. Let not the rich man glory in his riches, but let him that glorieth glory in this, that he understandeth and knoweth me, that I am Yahweh, which exercise loving kindness, judgment, and righteousness in the earth. For in these things I delight, saith Yahweh. Right? So that's the things that the Most High takes pleasures in, man. Righteousness, loving kindness, and judgment. You know, it doesn't care about how many riches you have, especially if you've just been heaping them up, tight-fisted, being stingy, being a so-called niggard, right? The Most High doesn't care for any of that. The Most High wants to see how loving you are towards your brothers, right? How much you care for the body, for the ministry, and for the lost sheep, for the flock, right? How much do you actually love the nation, right? But Lord willing, this video was edifying to at least one soul, right? Again, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory unto the Most High God, Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahweh Shai. With that, Kwam Yashrallah and Shalom.